Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Rebecca Rand.
In our top story, the Iranian cyber attack, which Jerusalem thwarted in April, was intended to poison Israel's residential water supply. Yigal Unna, head of Israel's National Cyber Directorate, explained that the hack was a synchronized and organized attack aimed at disrupting Israel's key national infrastructure. If it had not been detected immediately, chlorine and other chemicals could have mixed into the water, poisoning thousands of Israelis. The subsequent water shutoff could have caused further damage, as the attack coincided with Israel's longest, hottest heat wave in history. Israeli leaders condemned this unprecedented strike on the civilian population, saying it crossed a red line and violated all codes of war. Jerusalem sent a grave warning to Tehran by hacking one of its largest seaports, causing total chaos and bringing all traffic to a standstill.
Thousands of Israeli students and teachers have been sent into isolation as coronavirus infections have spiked. Several schools were shut down just 2 weeks after opening, and thousands of teachers and students have entered quarantine to prevent the continued spread of the deadly pathogen. Jerusalem has slowly begun to restart the economy after being one of the first countries to close. Israel's new Minister of Health, Yuli Edelstein, cautioned that the days to come were crucial in flattening the curve, and he warned that he would not hesitate to swiftly return to lockdown conditions if necessary.
The Trump administration has warned the notoriously anti-Israel International Criminal Court at The Hague that it will not be allowed to proceed with its biased agenda unchecked. The ICC has threatened to arrest Israeli leaders and even Israeli citizens if they travel abroad. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has announced new measures against the court after its chief prosecutor pushed for a war crimes probe of the Jewish state. He vowed that the ICC and the world will see that Washington is determined to prevent having Americans and our friends and allies in Israel hauled in by this court. The Trump administration already revoked the visa of the ICC chief prosecutor and will likely impose sanctions against this dubious organization and its officials.
Israel's Minister of Energy has announced that the target for renewable energy has been increased from 17% to 30% by 2030. This will come at the cost of 80 billion shekels over the next decade. Yuval Steinitz explained, the environmental significance is the replacement of coal and pollutants with solar energy and natural gas, which will lead to a 93% reduction in air pollution and a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions per capita. He went on to say that the almost $23 billion investment will create many jobs and that the solar installations built over the next 10 years will generate the equivalent of all electricity produced today.
Activists in Germany donned the yellow star to protest that country's coronavirus restrictions. During World War II, the Nazis made Jews identify themselves by sewing a yellow star onto their clothing. And once they became easily identifiable, the Jews were rounded up and sent to concentration camps where 6 million were slaughtered. Protesters in Nuremberg held signs saying 2020 equals 1933, implying that the restrictions to prevent the spread of COVID-19 were somehow comparable to the Nazi Party's rise to power. Munich has banned the use of the yellow star in public protest, but the use of Holocaust imagery and trivializing the genocide has many European Jews concerned, especially as anti-Semitic attacks and hate crimes against Jews have risen throughout Germany.
The violent protests and looting that has brought many cities in the United States to a standstill have provided cover for anti-Semitic attacks against the nation's Jewish citizens. Rioting in Los Angeles made for the perfect distraction while anti-Semites vandalized and defaced a Jewish synagogue with anti-Israel hate speech. Leora Rez, the director of the Stop Anti-Semitism watchdog group, said, "Once again, we see vile anti-Semitism being disguised as activism. To vandalize a synagogue during this horrific time does nothing but further divide a broken country."
Despite facing economic collapse, the Palestinians have launched a campaign to boycott all Israeli humanitarian and economic aid. The World Bank projected that the Palestinian economy will likely shrink by 11% in the aftermath of the coronavirus. And the United Nations also released a report urging immediate action to prevent the PA financial system from collapsing. Despite its seemingly desperate situation, Palestinian officials are refusing economic and humanitarian aid from Israel. The move comes just weeks after PA boss Mahmoud Abbas vowed to end all cooperation with Jerusalem.
In archaeological news, a 6-year-old Israeli boy discovered a 3,500-year-old Canaanite seal while hiking with his family. Imri Elia stumbled upon the ancient clay mold which depicts a prisoner and his captor while trekking in Tel Gemma near the Gaza border. The Elia family immediately notified the Israeli Antiquities Authority, who marveled over the find, saying nothing similar was ever uncovered in excavations in Israel. Archaeologists speculated that the impression reflects the power struggle between local kings over the territory in the ancient Negev desert 3,500 years ago. Imri was awarded with a certificate of good citizenship for notifying the Antiquities Authority of his find.
The Austrian Parliament has passed a resolution urging Vienna and the European Union to take action against Hezbollah. The measure calls for the Austrian government to target the money laundering apparatus that the Iranian-backed proxy army uses to fund its illegal terror campaign against Israel. The resolution states that to guarantee the safety of Israel in the future, the EU must again deal with Hezbollah, whose military wing has been considered a terrorist organization by the European body since 2013, and whose military activities threaten Israel's security.
Iran remains defiant in the face of crippling U.S. sanctions and is determined to create a nuclear weapon, despite U.S. threats to target individuals contributing to Iran's rogue nuclear program. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced sanctions against 2 nuclear scientists from Iran's Atomic Energy Organization who are involved with the development and production of centrifuges used to enrich uranium. In addition, Pompeo said he was renouncing the waivers which allowed Chinese, Russian, and European countries to work on Tehran's civilian nuclear facilities without penalties. The latest sanctions are in response to the Islamic Republic's continued nuclear advancements. Iranian leaders accused Pompeo of pulling the final plug in the nuclear deal, but remained adamant that it would continue its nonstop efforts more than ever before.
U.S. President Donald Trump has made a huge investment in fighting hate and discrimination by signing into law the Never Again Education Act. This legislation requires the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum to create curriculum to be taught in schools throughout the United States. The materials will include Holocaust history and equip educators with the means to teach tolerance to middle school and high school students. The measure also calls for the creation of an online data bank of information related to the Holocaust. The Never Again Act aims to provide students with the tools to recognize and fight hate and discrimination.
The Israeli-made anti-pathogen mask by Synovium has been recognized by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration as registered for marketing. Synovium has developed an almost permanent ultrasonic fabric finishing technology for the mechanical insertion of zinc oxide nanoparticles into textiles. The World Health Organization believes that coronavirus is transmitted through droplets less than 5 microns in diameter, and after testing, Synovium masks have proven to stop 98% of aerosols this size. Studies also reveal the fabric has a 99% virucidal effect, which means that the fabric works to deactivate viruses. Synovium hopes to replace the wasteful, one-time use, non-virucidal disposable masks with its reusable fabric ones.
Christians around the world are standing up to show their support for Israel's plan to extend sovereignty to Judea and Samaria. David Parsons, the vice president of the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, explained that the vast majority of Bible-believing Christians agree that declaring Israeli sovereignty is the right thing to do, and they are anxiously waiting to see Judea and Samaria under Jewish control, as it is the heartland of Israel and has been for 3,000 years. The Israeli Knesset is set to vote on the extension of sovereignty throughout Judea and Samaria as soon as July 1st, in accordance with President Trump's plan for regional peace. The expression of Christian support for this move is vital in the days and weeks to come. Josh Reinstein, the president of the Israel Allies Foundation, said, "Faith-based diplomacy is the most important weapon we have in our diplomatic arsenal today."
That concludes the news portion of our show. Please stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Abramowitz. He is the founder of the landofisrael.com network. Ari, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Josh. Good to see you.
Tell us about the Land of Israel network.
The Land of Israel Network, the purpose is to share the beauty and depth and dimension of what's happening in Israel, the truth, our truth of what's Israel, because the world hears about conflict and they just pigeonhole Israel as something it's not, when in reality there's beauty and inspiration and innovation, and we want to share the positivity of Israel with the world. And we've, since starting it 15 years ago, we now have the Arugot Farms on the Judean frontier that is our headquarters for the network, that is an entirely, I could describe it to you for 100 years, but it's like showing you a sheet of musical notes versus experiencing a philharmonic orchestra. It's a whole different thing.
Arugot Farm is something amazing. I've been there with the family many times, and now you've opened it up for groups and Christians to come and enjoy it. Why are Christians flocking to Arugot Farm?
So we have Jews coming from throughout Israel, around the world, and we have Christians coming from around the world. And there's something that happens there when you go there that is just transcendent. That's where King David fled from Saul. That's where he composed the Psalms. All of Jewish history played out there. The prophet Amos. I could go into all the prophecies for an hour right now. But I think what's happening is that there's a deeper connection happening. Christians, I think, back in the day, they would come and they want to see Israel and see the sights. Now I think they want relationships. They want relationships with the people. They want a deeper experience with the nation of Israel, with the land of Israel. And what we're doing out there on the Judean frontier, we paved the roads, we brought out the water and the electricity, and we brought life back to the heartland of Israel. That's the earth we're made of as Jews, is Judea. The reason Jews are called Jews is because we're from Judea. So I think Christians are seeking to connect with something deeper in their own faith, the Jewish roots of their faith, and that's bringing us together right there on those mountains.
You know, you have a partner named Jeremy Gimpel. You're both rabbis. You're both from America. What made you make Aliyah, come to land, and settle a farm?
So I would say that it was all pre-planned, but it feels like it happened to me. When I first came to Israel, it was supposed to be for a few months, and then I had these lightning bolt moments. I'm sure you've had them also. You know, in your journey with God, sometimes He just sends light into your life. I remember I was looking at a can of Coca-Cola. It was written in Hebrew, and my whole life Hebrew is this old, ancient, dead language like Latin, written in the Bible, and that was on a can of Coca-Cola, and children are speaking the same language as Yechezkel and Ezekiel and Jeremiah, the prophets. I was like, God has brought us back to this land, and I just, a passion was kindled within me. Looking back, before I came to Israel, I feel like I was a fish flopping around on the riverbank, gasping for air, slowly dying. But the memory span of a fish, it thinks this is what it is to be a fish. It's been on the riverbank so long it forgot. And then someone puts the fish back in the water. It's like, oh, this is what it is to be a fish. For me, coming back to Israel, living in Judea, it's like, this is what it is to be a Jew. You know, it's an experience, it's a relationship, it's a feeling, it's not something intellectual.
But what's amazing is that you're actually a pioneer. I mean, you came from Texas, you now live on a farm, you're resettling the land. This is barren land that wasn't settled before you moved there. You have a wife, you have a daughter, you're a farmer. How coming from Texas does that feel to really work the land of Israel?
So living in Texas, people are like, oh, he went from being a farmer in Texas to, not really. You know, I was from Houston, Texas. It's a big urban city. But going out to Judea and working the land and planting trees, and we went out there, it was barren, it was a wasteland. It was a wasteland. We have drone footage from 10 years ago. There wasn't even one tree there. Now there's over 4,000 fruit trees, 3 vineyards. We have this Garden of Eden-like oasis pool that you and your family were able to go and experience. We're building the spiritual retreat center. It's like the Garden of Eden. It's like the Garden of Eden out there, and it's so the vitality and the joy and the life that it's brought me, and not only me, like if I were just to enjoy it myself, that would be missing the point. These, especially Christians that come out, there's not one dry eye. I'm telling you, going out there, there's not one dry eye in the experience of it's a redemptive feeling. It's hard to explain what a redemptive feeling is because I don't even know what redemption even means, really. I don't think anyone really knows what it means, and there's something humbling about it.
Yeah, I went there the last time and I saw Governor Mike Huckabee there. The time before, Yair Netanyahu, the Prime Minister's son, was there. This place is driving people from all walks of life, all over the place to come there. What's pulling everyone there?
So, we just actually had a piece on Fox News. Pete Hegseth was out there. He did something called The Battle on the Holy Land. But, up until recently, even now in the international media, what do they call me? What do they call me? I'm a settler in the West Bank. Why do they say I'm a settler in the West Bank? Because it's much easier saying, get the settlers out of the West Bank than get the Jews out of Judea. Right? There's something beautiful about the Jewish people returning to our indigenous land. And when we do that, we start returning to ourselves, to our own identity. And we're supposed to be a light unto the nations. And so I really think it's in the best interest of the whole world to encourage the Jewish return to Judea. There's nothing more natural and nothing more. And the Trump administration, actually, they've come out with this new peace plan. From Trump's perspective, I actually think it's very well intentioned. And I think he's really a friend for Israel and the Jewish people. And because of our farm, we're an Enclave 8. We have expanded the borders of what it would have been given to a Palestinian state. But that would have been tragic. That would have been a horrific injustice for Israel. It would have weakened Israel and the entire Jewish people and the whole world. We're on the tip of the spear for liberty and truth in the world. And so I think people are wanting to connect to something authentic and real and holy.
You bring up the deal of the century. Everyone's talking about sovereignty now in Judea and Samaria, that we're going to be declaring sovereignty in the next few weeks, hopefully. What does that mean for your farm?
So well, first of all, one of the great leaders of the sovereignty movement is Women in Green, Nadia Matar. She's a personal hero and mentor of mine. And what it means for the farm, for me, honestly, it doesn't really mean anything. We're already in Judea. I feel like we're sovereign people in our land, so I don't need the world's license to say that we're sovereign or we're free in our own land. But to have international recognition, to have the administration of America pushing forward and saying, no, this is actually Israel, this is actually Judea, it's a powerful statement, and it's something that I think will help Israel ourselves liberate ourselves psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually from thinking that we are somehow sidelined as occupied in the eyes of the world, and we're like, no, this is not only in our minds, but in the minds of the world. Judea belongs to the Jews, and we're back in our land as things are supposed to be.
What's the future of our goat farms? What's going to happen there next?
The truth is, I don't know what the future of our goat farms is. The coronavirus has come in and upended the whole tourism industry. But the vision was to have a spiritual retreat center, people coming out to the mountains of Judea to experience ancient types of Jewish meditation, hitbodedut and hishtokekut, and ways to connect with God on a transcendent way, to have the nations of the world come and learn about farming and agriculture and connect with the Jewish people and to connect with Judea. That's what it's going to be no matter how things turn out. But the truth is, I just don't know. God is doing something in the world and navigating things into untraversed waters. And so I don't know the way things are going to go, but I know that our mission has always been to be a light unto the nations and to share the truth and beauty with the world. So we're going to do that from the farm, whether it's virtually or whether it's in person. But right now, we're also focusing on Jews. We have Jews coming out from Netanya and Tel Aviv. They come out to these mountains and they're looking around, they're like, are we in the Golan? Is this the Galil? Where are we? This is so beautiful. And something happens within them when they come. So there's a lot of potential options. But one thing I can say, it's going to continue being a shining light of liberty and of holiness and of spirituality, not just for the Jewish people, but for the whole world.
Ari, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
The message I would have for the world is that we've had the Bible and the prophets illuminating spiritual destiny for us for thousands of years, but I really think it was for our times that they shared the way things are playing out right now. And if you want to be on the side of light, then support Israel, support the Jewish people's return to Judea, because the Jewish people's return to Judea is the return of God to the world, and ultimately will be an uplifting and transcending experience for everyone. So if you want to be able to connect with that, you can watch Josh's show, you can see Women in Green, and you could also turn to thelandofisrael.com, where we have podcasts every single day to connect the dots and help people understand what's really happening through spiritual prism in this confusing world we're in today.
Thank you, Ari, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom, and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Sam Grunberg, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Aliyah is crucial to the success of the State of Israel. Without the constant flow of new immigrants who come from the four corners of the earth, the deserts would not have bloomed, the cities would not have been built, and Israel would not be known as the startup nation. Listen to how God has brought His people back to Israel.
Me and my family always prayed to come to Israel because it's a home, it's our home. 10 months ago, I made Aliyah with my sister. We are living together in Haifa. I'm worrying about my family because the situation in Ukraine now really terrible.
The past decade and a half has witnessed a frightening upsurge of worldwide anti-Semitism, unparalleled since the 1930s. Across Europe, incitement, desecration of Jewish institutions, attacks on Jewish property, and acts of terror, including murder, are striking fear into Jewish communities. From London to Berlin, Brussels to Copenhagen, Jews are being harassed, assaulted, and murdered. The situation is particularly intolerable in France and in Ukraine. In France, violent crimes against Jews have become commonplace.
Avec la multiplication des actes antisémites en France, donc déjà j'ai peur pour moi, mais j'ai aussi peur pour ma famille, pour ma femme, pour mes enfants plus tard.
In eastern Ukraine, over 1 million people have been displaced. In the escalating chaos and lawlessness, Jews have once again become scapegoats, with many anti-Semitic incidents reported.
When I was in school, my classmates told me that, oh, you're Jewish, it's not normal in Ukraine, why you are Jewish? It was very hard for me to speak with them, to describe every time what I do in Ukraine and why I'm Jewish.
I will give to you and your descendants after you the land of your sojourning, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession. But Israel has always been the homeland of the Jewish people. Throughout their 2,000-year exile, the Jews prayed daily to return to the land of Israel. In 1917, Great Britain issued the Balfour Declaration. In 1920, Karen Hayesod was established to raise funds for this purpose. Since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, Karen Hayesod has helped bring 3.5 million olim to Israel from the four corners of the earth.
This is Bible prophecy come into fulfillment. It's not just my heart, but I can feel the heart of Abba Father. Abba Father in heaven is so pleased to see His children who are scattered all around the globe is coming back home.
From India to Africa to Europe, record-breaking numbers of Jews are eager to come home. Aliyah rose dramatically in the past year, hitting a 10-year high, despite the security threats that face Israel. Karen Hayesod operates in 45 countries throughout the world. The Karen Hayesod law, passed by the Knesset in January 1956, grants the organization a unique fundraising status. In close coordination with the government and the Jewish Agency for Israel, and in partnership with the global Jewish community and Friends of Israel, Karen Hayesod promotes Aliyah and other national priorities. We need you, dear friends, to be our partners in this noble mission of helping the people of Israel return home before the window of opportunity slams shut and live safely in its secured homeland. Karen Hayesod, with your generous assistance, has redoubled its efforts to facilitate every Jew who wishes to fulfill the biblical prophecy. Friends of Israel, the Holy Land and its people needs you now. He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the four quarters of the earth.
Let's bless Israel together.
Now's the time for you to get involved. Assist Karen Hayesod to raise the necessary funds in order to bring Jews yearning for their homeland back to Israel. Your donation can help fulfill the biblical prophecy today. To donate and get information, visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
I want you to close your eyes and imagine. Imagine a 7-year-old Palestinian girl named Fatima. Fatima is walking with her mother to school. They pass a statue erected in June, and young Fatima asks, "Mommy, who is that?" The mother answers, "That's Khaled Nazal. He planned the murder of 22 Israeli schoolchildren and 4 grown-ups." On their walk back, Fatima and her mother pass another statue, also erected by the Palestinian Authority last year. "What's his name?" Fatima asks with a child's curiosity. The mother answers, "That's Abu Sukar. He murdered 15 Israelis." As they approach their house, Fatima peers up at one last statue erected by the Palestinian Authority. "Mommy, which one is that?" And the mother answers, "That is Dalal Mughrabi. She murdered 37 Israelis on a bus." Fatima doesn't deserve to be brainwashed with this kind of hatred. No child does. Children should be taught to love and respect, not to hate and kill. There are so many great champions of peace to dedicate statues to. Why do the Palestinians consistently choose to honor mass murderers?
Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. The biblical prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. The people of Israel are returning to the Promised Land after 2,000 years of exile. But millions of Jews are still longing to come home. Anti-Semitism threatens many of the Jews. We must rescue them before the window of opportunity slams shut. Bless Israel by supporting Karen Hayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Together, we can fulfill the prophecy of the Bible.
Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
And that's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Rebecca Rand, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us next week for all of your Israel updates.